This is a follow-up to the Times Education Awards, where the University of Birmingham won the Estate Strategy of the Year award for the academic year 2018-19, which probably in hindsight is now quite a special academic year. It's the last before COVID hit. But how has the university reacted to the win?
Hi. So I'm Trevor Payne. I'm Director of Estates at the university. We were so pleased and so excited to win, and it's really the culmination of years of planning and work to actually get to a point where you've got a strategy and then to be able to deliver it and to be recognised for delivering it, I think is great. And also by Times Higher, it's just the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. I mean, there was stiff competition in your midst, but I think one of the aspects that stood out was that this was the biggest renewal of your estate since the establishment of the university. I mean, what was the driver for such an ambitious strategy?
Absolutely. So yeah, there's always so much going on in the sector and fantastic signature projects. So to be successful with such a lot going on with peers is always quite humbling. I mean, in terms of the strategy for Birmingham, the majority of our building work on campus was back in sort of 1908, circa that time. So we've got a lot of heritage, fantastic, beautiful buildings on campus of that vintage and everything in between. We're a bit of a full-size building museum, really, in Edgbaston. But the last big push on construction was around the 1960s, late 50s, early 60s. So we're getting a lot of buildings that are life cycling now. And obviously we're using buildings in different ways now in terms of technology and infrastructure. So a combination of to support students, to make sure we have the right facilities for staff and for research, we've injected a huge amount of capital into the university and really transformed the experience for staff and for students. So that's why there's been a big burst of activity with this strategy, was because it was required really to take us into the next decade and beyond.
Is that with new builds capital projects or with a focus on some of those more historic buildings on campus?
I think it's a mix of both, to be honest. I mean, we've got a lot of heritage grade 1, grade 2 listed buildings on campus. And of course, we're custodians and we're careful custodians of those buildings. So we have to respect and look after them. We've got a lot of property, over 200 buildings. And if we look ahead to our sort of future strategies, majority of the buildings that we're in at the moment will be the buildings that we'll have in, say, 2050, when we're focusing on carbon reduction targets. So whatever strategy we put together has to focus on targeted new builds, and some of that will be influenced by COVID now and other things, but also a strategy around retrofit. So you've got the two, new build technology, but also refurbishing buildings we've already got.
And in terms of that carbon reduction aspect then, sustainability environmental was one thing that I know the Times judges were looking at. And you've made great strides in reaching some of the targets that you'd already set. And I think that was one of the other aspects that stood out, was that you've actually met some of the targets, not just implemented an ambitious strategy. I mean, what did that include? How did you go about delivering that? And have you therefore been more ambitious going forward?
We're definitely more ambitious going forward. So we're just about to share our route map to 2050 and net zero carbon. We've been quite successful to date. We hit our 2020 target more than 2 years in advance, and that was a combination of things we were doing around the estate. So taking some of the buildings off, working in different ways, working more efficiently, procuring more efficiently in some instances. But there's more that we need to do, and we know, particularly as we complete this strategy and capital plan and look ahead to the next one, this is an important 10-year period. What we do now will pave the way to where we get to in 2050. So this has to be baked in now. So that's a big focus of our attention at the moment, is around how we take these next steps.
Brilliant. Well, you mentioned procurement there, and sort of driving efficiencies in how do you deliver those capital projects. It was noted that you set up your own framework. And you're trying to draw on best practice of how buildings, capital projects are delivered across other sectors. I mean, that's of interest to Savills, because part of Savills education is how to apply activity in commercial sectors better within the higher education forum. And it'd be interesting to know how you've driven those efficiencies with your own framework, and how applying wider best practice has been to your advantage.
Mm-hmm. So quite a few of the buildings in the estate strategy over the last 5 years have been delivered through an existing framework called Constructing West Midlands, and it was a Birmingham City Council framework. We've decided that, having used it, we really like the framework approach. It enables us to share a pipeline of projects, get into a dialogue with a limited number of contractors who we've taken through a compliant process, but we can start to have a much more constructive conversation about the projects that we're bringing forward. It's a two-way process. We can look at aspects of standardization on campus. We can look at traffic control, procurement. If we've got 3 live projects, are we using the same component? Can we pull resourcing? So all of those things that actually, if you take a step back, it's barn door obvious really that we should be doing it. And that's not just on campus, but within the sector. And I come from the NHS, so I'm really keen to make sure we break the barriers down between sectors as well, because we're all pretty similar, commercial, NHS, HE, we've all got the same sorts of challenges and compliance risks, but actually we don't talk enough, if I'm honest. So the framework was really an opportunity to facilitate a way forward with a group of people that we knew we would be working with for the next 5 to 10 years, and it's paid dividends, and it works for us and it works for the framework contractors.
Well, the projects that were in your 2018 plan, which the judges reviewed, they said there'd been major benefits for the local economy and community. Is that through the university's recognition that they should be more commercial, should be considering community, the wider aspects of sustainability? Is that therefore encouraged a wider, almost civic role for the university in that plan?
Absolutely. So, I mean, there are probably 2 or 3 aspects to that. I mean, we take our civic responsibility. We're the first civic university, so we take our civic responsibilities really importantly, and being part of Birmingham and doing things within and for Birmingham is really, really important. I think with the frameworks as well, we built an aspect of buy local into the conversation that we're having, and employ local where you can. Obviously, it has to be compliant with procurement regulations, but the contribution of the investment we've made into our projects on campus means it benefits Birmingham in terms of, things being bought locally, people being employed, apprenticeships, social value. We bring the schools in onto sites, and all of those things add. But the other aspect from a community perspective is some of the facilities that we built as part of the strategy are community facing and can be accessed by the community. So the sports centre, the hotel, other things that we've got on campus. So, we are a bit more permeable now to the local community as well. Well,
and you're very visible down in Edgbaston, aren't you? And it's just, you are entrenched in that community just by the pure location and how you've grown organically around it. So, it makes sense for the community to be more heavily engaged in what you can deliver and offer more widely.
Yeah, and we can't be seen to be an elite organisation. We are there, we're part of the community. We employ lots of people. We're one of the major employers in Birmingham. And one of the big projects we delivered actually as part of the strategy was a landscape parkland project in the centre of campus, which is open to the public. So the public come in, they can see the university, they understand what we're doing, they can interact with us, and that has to be supported and developed actually. Yeah.
I mean, I know a lot of your time has been spent on delivering the Dubai campus. Has there been anything that you've learned either in the UK that has been applied in Dubai, or from Dubai applied into the UK? Are there synergies across the two where you can see some benefits?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a huge learning curve for me. I'd never run a project out in that part of the world before. And COVID has added another layer of complexity to that in terms of a live campus project that's almost at completion, and how do you manage it remotely? I guess to answer your question, it's probably, we're learning in Dubai, and we'll play that into Edgbaston because we're starting with a clean sheet of paper. So I mentioned before about heritage buildings. What you tend to end up with are some fantastic buildings, but you've got constraints in terms of what you can and can't do because of listing and sizes and locations of buildings. With a clean sheet of paper, you can plan the campus from scratch. So all of your adjacencies, your space, all of the way that things are going to operate. So what we've always said is we will use Dubai as an opportunity to inform what we do in Edgbaston moving forward. So we're looking at Internet of Things and timetabling systems and intelligent campus, because we can build these things in. But actually, if we can retrofit some of those things, having proven that they work, into Edgbaston, that can only be a good thing.
So it's almost a test bed for innovative technologies, all of that, and weaving it successfully back in.
Yeah, and it gives us the chance to prove it works as well.
Yeah. You mentioned COVID there. I need to mention it. Obviously, the estate strategy was awarded on your last pre-pandemic academic year. So you've now had a full 12 months of an academic year where you've been in the midst of the pandemic. From an estate's perspective, at least, how have you had to change tact in what your plans were? Has it only accelerated certain areas which were already in train pre-COVID? How do you feel about the last 12 months and the way forward?
Well, they weren't the last 12 months that anyone wanted or would have planned, I guess. The first thing to say is the university didn't close. So during lockdown, we remained open in part because we have COVID-related research. We still had over 1,000 students on campus that were with us, and were with us all the way through, because we take a lot of international students. So, we've got the medical school and medical research going on. So we managed to stay open to support COVID-related activity, and there was a lot we did on that. From an estate strategy perspective, we paused the capital programme, as did many other universities up and down the country, but we continued with those contracts that were already on site or in contract. So our new School of Engineering reached practical completion 2 weeks ago. That continued all the way through. So we worked with Wilmot Dixon on that project and put safe systems of work in place, and it worked extremely well. So, we had to learn the new rules, follow the rules and tweak them along the way, but actually it delivered. So COVID, from a construction perspective, we continued on some projects. We've just taken a breath on some others, but we're now starting to think about what the next steps will be.
And whether that will change what you deliver in your buildings, how they're delivered. I
think we've all got to think about, having worked in different ways for more than 12 months now and in different locations, how do we come back? How do we work in the future? What role does space play in that? How does the estate support that? I think there's going to continue to be an element of virtual delivery in terms of work and academic delivery, not in total, because I think there's a campus and a community presence that you need to learn with others. You can't totally be Zoom or Teams. But it will have an impact on space, and what we need to do now is work out just what that impact might be. So again, that can be folded into a strategic approach moving forward. Yeah,
and obviously you've got your Birmingham Health Innovation Campus in the making, which was already in the making, and health, life sciences, is familiar with all households now, thanks to COVID. The innovation campus that you're planning is going to be a landmark campus. Has the last 12 months had any bearing on how you want to take that project forward, or is it just bolstered the fact that it was a much required idea in the first place?
So it's actually cemented the need to do it, because it just underpins everything that the life sciences campus was all about. We've got a unique opportunity in terms of location, because the life sciences campus is immediately adjacent to the university and to the hospital, so you can get from benchside and bedside within 10 minutes. So we've got a fantastic opportunity of information academics and clinical professionals. We were already significantly on the way to securing a partner to develop that campus, and as you quite rightly said, COVID has now just really reinforced the need for better research, for better work with the NHS, to really try and industrialise some of the things that we are trying out at an incubator level on campus, so that we can be a bit more fleet of foot in the future.
Well, it's it's going to be a great asset for the Midlands, let alone for the University in Birmingham.
From a Birmingham perspective, jobs, business, it's tick, tick, tick all the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think if you look at what the judges base their awards on, and what you and other universities have had to contend with over the last 12 months, I think I mean, everyone deserves an award, but I suppose looking at the pre-pandemic year, I mean, it was a standout strategy, and you've made great strides in delivering it. So congratulations again.
Thank you very much. No, we're really, really pleased, and thank you.